because they like the dispersion method. Jet airplanes, small airplanes, and ground-based chemical and particle experimentation, but that's what they use. So what happens is that California is only 164,000 square miles, roughly, in area. But programs that go on here can go up to 184,000 square miles. That's bigger than the state of California, and that's about half the size of Texas. Well, actually, it's a little bigger than half the size of Texas. So when a weather modification program is implemented, it can be outside the bounds of the states, and the area that it covers is huge. Now, the weather modification programs can be for hail suppression, they can be for rain enhancement, storm enhancement, snow enhancement, dissipate clouds, any variety of programs. And anyone can modify your weather without your permission. The Bureau of Reclamation, NASA, the U.S. Air Force, let's see, Homeland Security just got money so that they can modify the weather as well. So all these agencies are engaged in weather modification. So here we are over here, and the jet stream comes across most of the time this way from the west coast to the east coast. And when we implement all these programs and are accelerating, you're going to see more weather changes, and the end result of those changes here, we don't even know the synergistic effects of those programs. My concern is, though, that this is a lot of agricultural areas that are going to be impacted by these programs. And you have small microclimates, and each crop depends on a consistent microclimate, where they get so much rain, they get so much sun in order to produce crops. Our food supply and our water supply and our watersheds can be endangered if we start to play with our weather at the scope and depth that we're playing with it at this time. Now, when I talk to people and I show them this map, they go, whoa, wait a minute, anybody can modify the weather is one question, and I say yes, because there's no laws that would say that I have to tell you what I'm spraying, what chemical I'm using, how big the program is, who benefits, a private company benefits, universities can experiment, NASA can experiment, the Air Force over here does weather modification and lightning experiments over here in Florida, University of Alaska is involved in programs, MIT up here is talking about more experiments all over. So the yellow areas don't extend this way because more of this in here can be experimental. The southern states, different things, so that they only list at the Department of Commerce ongoing and current programs. However, California doesn't list all of its programs, and neither does the state of Texas. So Texas is got a lot more programs than they tell the Department of Commerce that they're doing. So the extent of the weather modification and other countries modifying the weather is tremendous. Now, current legislation, let's talk about that. Current legislation, which is in the first paragraph of your handout, Senator Kay Bailey Hutchison's bill, Senate Bill 1807, Barbara Boxer's bill from California, 3063, and Senator Lieberman's bill in Connecticut, 2191, and also another bill that just recently is in draft form. Congressman Dingell and Boucher have just introduced it, a 461-page bill. Now, what these bills say is we're going to mitigate the weather, set up a climate, in other words, a climate board to experiment more on the weather, and we're going to set up on this board no public oversight, no congressional oversight. We're going to put people on the board for 12 years at a time, and they're going to direct weather modification policies across the United States and implement mitigation or modification of the weather. And the bills do not define weather modification or mitigation, what they intend to do. However, since very few of our elected representatives, Senator Harkin's office didn't seem to know about all of these programs, and he's in agriculture. Boxer and Feinstein didn't know anything about these programs. They're in California, where huge belts of agriculture go through. So what happens is we're going to mitigate weather, bad weather, good weather, and we're not looking, and they don't know about these ongoing programs and all the university experiments. So when we say we're going to pass legislation to mitigate the weather, and we don't have to notify any of us, the agricultural producers, the farmers, the ranchers, no one, with these programs, and they're going to implement more, then I say we have to cut the legislation and regroup and get some laws in here that protect our water supplies from the chemicals being used, some highly toxic and experimental. Particulates are being now suggested that they're going to take salt off the California coast in the Pacific, or salt particles, because they can make clouds rain out faster with salt. But where's the objection from agriculture is my question, saying salt is not good for plants. They won't grow if you salt up the soil, and our drinking water supplies don't need to have any salt injected into them either for us to drink. So here's the rub. This is where my concern lies with agriculture, drinking water supplies, and this is where we are fighting to stop this legislation or put a dent into it, because one bill, Senator Lieberman's or Senator Boxer's, is within 5 votes of passing in the U.S. Senate. And they could railroad those bills through at any time. And if we don't stand up for our various states and counties, if we don't stand up, then they're going to go through. Now, we went to the governor's office in Connecticut and spoke with staff there, and of course they didn't know about all of this and these weather modification programs either.